Hello and welcome to the Killer Bits. My name is Francesca and this week I want to talk to you about this game, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate, or Monster Hunter 3 in general and the Monster Hunter franchise. Now, Monster Hunter 3 is a game that's come to the Wii, the 3DS, and the Wii U in various different forms. So Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is the kind of slightly upgraded version of the game. However, Monster Hunter Tri is pretty much the same game. There are a few differences, and that's the one that you can find on the Wii. Now, the reason I want to talk about this game is because whilst it's pretty big in Japan, there's not much of a Western following, so you might not know that much about it. And I intend to rectify that and explain to you why I really like the game. I mean, you don't have to like it, but I want to kind of talk about it because in the last week I've sunk far too many hours into this game. Now, Monster Hunter 3 is a game where you hunt monsters. That's kind of evident from the title. And beyond that, I really didn't know that much about this game when I bought it. And being in Norway, it was also incredibly difficult to find because, I mean, it's not that successful of a game anyway. Being in a country with a very small population, it was a bit difficult. Anyway, I want to talk about the cons first. So I'm going to go through what you might not like about it, and then I'll go through why it's great despite that. So, Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate is a bit of a tricky game to get into. And I'm saying that as someone who's gotten into it in the last week. So, it's got a very slow start to the game. At the very beginning, they send you out on these kind of fluffy quests where you have to gather simple materials like mushrooms or kill like 3 herbivores. It's very simple, but the whole point is to get you used to questing. It's trying to teach you how to quest rather than just throw you in at the deep end. And for me, it was quite slow getting into it. Having bought the game, I was like, is this it? Am I just going to be like collecting mushrooms and killing small dinosaurs for the rest of the game? But that's not what the game is about. The game is about killing big, difficult to fight monsters. And it does get to that. It just gets to that a little bit too slowly. Another issue some people might have is that the weapons handle quite differently to other RPG-based games. So in Monster Hunter, some of the weapons feel quite slow and clunky. The bow is completely different to any bow you'll ever use in another game. There are weapons that are a bit quicker for those who are more interested in it. Stuff like the sword and shield and the match slicers do hit fairly fast. But these slower weapons aren't necessarily bad. Once you get into the rhythm of these weapons, of attacking and dodging, of using combos, they can actually be an awful lot of fun and be very rewarding. Another thing that puts people off this sort of game is that it doesn't have a level up system for your character. So when you get put into the game, that is it. That is as good as you're going to be in terms of personal skills. The way you level up your character is by improving your weapons and improving your armor. So you need to craft armor and craft weapons or upgrade. And to do this, you have to gather all sorts of different materials from different monsters and different gathering spots along the way. So the game does involve a little bit of grinding, but we'll get onto why the grinding in the game isn't that bad in a minute. The last thing people might have issue with is it's a bit of a tricky game to learn. It's tricky to learn because the game doesn't present all the information in a very clear way. There's bits of dialogue with a certain character which will explain something, but only very briefly. Learning how to fight different monsters is quite challenging when you don't know where their weak spots are. Finding different materials is tricky if you have no idea where to find them, and there are loads of materials in this game. So Google is your friend in this game in some ways, especially when you're starting out, trying to understand exactly how the game works and how the different fighting mechanics work and why this monster is weak to water and why this monster is putting you to sleep. They do require some thought and some work, and this can put people off. Because the game is so in-depth and also poorly presents this information, it can be quite challenging to figure out what armor skills are or how to add decorations to your armor. Now, despite all of this, this game has me so hooked. It's a lot of fun. And it's a lot of fun because it's a real challenge. Now, we know that games like Dark Souls have introduced the idea that games should be difficult, and Monster Hunter is difficult in a really satisfying way. Yes, the monsters are hard to fight. Yes, it's challenging, but it's challenging in a way that encourages you to want to try again, because the monster fights are so intricate and involved. Monsters have different abilities and skills, weaknesses and strengths, and it encourages you to want to learn them. And that's why I said that whilst this game does involve grinding, there are situations where you need to gather a whole bunch of materials from a specific monster. Those aren't tedious because as you fight a monster, you become more and more adept at defeating it. And this game is a lot about skill. For example, the monsters don't have health bars. You don't know how close a monster is to death when you're fighting it. However, there are signals. It does, for example, occasionally limp, or they'll be drooling, or parts of it will break off. And those are some signals of how weak the monster is, but you have to be kind of intuitive and pay attention. And if you don't pay attention in this game, you're kind of lost. It's just really gratifying and encourages you to keep playing. It's a game where you sit down and start, and 4 hours have gone by and you haven't even noticed. And for me, the game really suits my play style. There's a load of content. Sometimes you have to fight loads of monsters, and there's also a deep strategy element as you prepare for a battle. You have to think, what potions do I need? How many traps am I gonna need? Do I need cold drinks to counteract the heat? Do I need warm drinks to counteract the cold? Does this monster poison me? Does this monster cool me down? But all of these things you have to learn from fighting the monster, and then become better and better and more trained and more skilled at fighting each individual type of monster. And then when you think you've got it down, they throw you against 2 or 3 of that monster, or 2 of that monster, or 1 of that monster and 1 of another monster, and you're trying to deal with all these monsters at the same time. And it's really stimulating, but also deeply gratifying when you succeed. And whilst it's frustrating when you fail, it's not frustrating to the point of wanting to quit. It's frustrating to the point of wanting to try again, or I'll go fight a different monster and I'll come back to this monster afterwards. Take a little break by fighting something that you're better versed against, and then continuing on. And that's why I think it's a great game. The other thing to mention is that you can play cooperatively on the Wii U. So you just take all of this fun you've been having, and then you work as a team with your teammates to take on something even more difficult. And I just love it. I think the game is really satisfying. One of the issues is the 3DS version only has local multiplayer, unlike the Wii U where you can play online. And like I say, the game doesn't have much of a storyline. You have to kind of create your own direction in the game. I mean, there are quests and there is this underlying earthquake story, but it's not story driven. And for people who like story driven games, this might not be the game for you. But Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate is said to be bringing much more of a story base into the game. And also the handheld market will then have online capabilities as well, which counteract some of the issues from Monster Hunter 3. So that's Monster Hunter, and that's why I really like it. And because it's not that well known here in the West, I figured I'd talk about it for a bit, even though it's a game that's quite old and not at all recent. Anyway, if you've liked the video, then you could press that thumbs up button and maybe leave a comment about what you think of the game. Have you played it? Have you not played it? You could even subscribe. That would be great. If you're into Facebook, we also have a Facebook, facebook.com/thekilobits. You can press that like button. We have a Twitter, which is @thekilobits. You can press that follow button. I have a Twitter @Jaggerus for all of your Francesca needs, then go there. And my Twitch, where I actually do sometimes stream Monster Hunter, is twitch.tv/Jaggerus. That's it from me this week, guys, and I'll see you in the next vlog. Rawr, I'm a monster.